The woman was pulled by a mysterious force, repeatedly crashing against the walls. Then, she was about to be torn apart. The situation was critical, but the man behind her didn't help. Instead, he raised the camera to film. After the girl rushed into the room, the door locked and wouldn't open. Just as she found the woman, who had been dragged away, she saw a horrifying scene. What is happening? Can they escape the haunted house? This all took place in the northern region of Malaysia. On this day, the film crew arrived at a temple. They were preparing to film a horror event about a monk performing an exorcism. Helen is the key figure, as she has had the ability to commune with spirits since birth. Helen can sense things that ordinary people cannot see. After producer Marty met her, they discovered their similar ideals and interests, so they created a show together and became lovers. The monk drew symbols on the woman's back, watching her in pain. Helen urged Marty to stop the monk. She wanted to abandon the filming, but the monk told the translator Annie that, although the ritual was painful, if they didn't stop him, they might witness a miracle. At a critical moment, the woman began to vomit. Even more terrifying, there were several steel nails in her vomit. After vomiting, the woman had a relieved expression. The monk told everyone that this was the curse from the woman's former lover. Then, he seriously told Helen that there is only one evil in the world, ignorance. Helen felt ashamed after hearing this. In fact, the monk knew that Helen had the ability to commune with spirits, but she not only failed to help others, she used it to make money. At parting, the monk gave Helen a bracelet. He said that once she had compassion, her pain would naturally heal. Helen was a bit confused, but the monk left after speaking. The filming process went smoothly, and the crew began to pack their bags. They were heading to the next filming location, while everyone was on the road. Helen checked her phone for emails from contributors. She hoped there would be many people to be filmed. Helen used her ability to assess the authenticity of the content in the email. After reviewing the emails, Helen decided to take everyone to a villa in the neighboring state. The Chi Lee couple lived there. In the video, they stated that shortly after moving into the residence, they discovered signs of ghostly activity. Therefore, they requested the crew to come and film, hoping to help them resolve their troubles. After confirming the video was authentic, Helen shared her thoughts with Annie. A few hours later, they arrived smoothly at the front of the villa. Marty advised the Chi Lee couple over the phone about the precautions for the first filming. Soon, the Chi Lee couple cooperated with the crew to complete the first scene. Next, everyone went inside, and they saw the wife Martha praying on the second floor. She shared her concerns with everyone. It turned out that Martha often painted a portrait of a man while she was asleep. What's even stranger is that Martha had never seen the man before. Everyone felt puzzled as well. Helen stepped forward and touched the painting with her hand. She felt nothing, but why could she sense things in the email? Then Martha continued to speak. At night, while sleeping in her bedroom, she would wake up to find herself in another place. Even after contacting Helen and the others, the clothes in their wardrobe were all torn. Martha's fear deepened. Helen checked again but still felt nothing. Martha took them to the basement, where they found only a dead mouse. Marty decided to temporarily end the filming. Everyone returned to the living room, while Helen and Martha stayed in the basement. They talked about recent events. At this moment, a strange sound reached Helen's ears, but Martha didn't hear it. In the next second, the basement door suddenly closed, and Martha disappeared. An old radio seemed to be the source of the sound. Suddenly, a female ghost appeared, attempting to choke Helen. Helen was frozen in fear, and hurried to the car to find some calming medication. Marty followed her outside, wanting to stop Helen, because the woman had taken a lot of medication that day. Helen told the producer about what had happened in the basement. She could sense the ghost's strong will, which was completely different from before. Marty thought this wasn't a bad thing, because they could capture a lot of exciting footage. But Helen told Marty that the ghosts they encountered before were always under control. Without her permission, such things would never happen, and they certainly wouldn't want to harm her. Seeing this, Marty comforted Helen. At night, the crew had nowhere to go, so they had to stay overnight in the villa. The two on night duty were Ian and Mike. Mike was skilled with various electronic devices, and installed high-definition cameras in every corner of the house. The Chi Lee couple thanked the crew for their hard work. Then, they went to rest. In the middle of the night, Ian and Mike kept their spirits up by playing cards. Suddenly, a terrible scream came from Martha's bedroom. This signaled that the work had begun. Everyone rushed to the room with their equipment. Martha was by the fireplace, repeatedly banging her head against the wall. Her head was bleeding, yet she didn't stop. Soon, Martha fell to the ground, being dragged away by a force into the basement. Helen wanted to rush over to save her, but the wooden door closed automatically. No matter how hard the others tried, the door wouldn't open. Helen was at a loss. She could only search for Martha's whereabouts. The hostess fell into a coma in the corner. After waking Martha, Helen helped her toward the wooden door. In the next moment, upon hearing the commotion, the people outside panicked. Fortunately, the wooden door finally opened. Everyone then discovered that the two were lying on the ground. The next morning, the Chi couple contacted a doctor to treat Martha. As they reviewed the footage from last night, Ian expressed his thoughts. They had always filmed subjects like haunted houses or exorcisms, so there was a lot of competition. However, cases like that of the Chi couple were rare, and he believed that once the show aired, they would definitely gain views and returns. After hearing this, Helen fell silent. Just as she was deep in thought, a bloody ghost appeared before her. Helen was frightened and ran away. Marty chased after her outside. He heard Helen say she wanted to give up, claiming that continuing to film would hurt others. Marty quickly tried to persuade Helen. He said this episode could attract a lot of views, meaning they could make a lot of money. Marty urged Helen to try communicating with the ghost again, but she remained unsettled. The scene shifted to Ian and Mike editing the video. At this moment, Annie arrived. Ian asked Annie why he hadn't seen her last night. Annie replied that she had fallen asleep and hadn't heard any noise at all. Meanwhile, Helen arrived at a bar, wanting to have a drink to calm her nerves. The owner told her that the bar had been in operation for 50 years. He also knew the Chi couple, and had warned them when they moved in, because long-term residents here were all aware of it. The original owner of the house disappeared suddenly. The owner also told Helen about the history of the house, from the first owner of the house to the Chi couple. Their fates were all the same. The female owner would be tormented. Then, the owner told Helen that perhaps she would be able to uncover the truth once she returned, but if she didn't go back, her friends would be in danger. Just as the owner finished speaking, all the lights in the bar went out. When Helen woke up, she found herself sitting in a rundown bar. Helen was shocked. Fortunately, a local resident came in. He asked her how she got there, and who she had just been talking to. Helen didn't answer. She just pointed at a photo on the wall. The man told her that the person in the photo was the previous owner of the bar, but he had died many years ago. He had a child with his wife, but she disappeared without reason. The bar owner searched for days with no news, and ultimately he died of depression. Helen murmured an apology, and quickly fled the bar. Helen finally realized that she had just spoken with a ghost. The scene shifted to Mike, who accidentally saw the camera installed in Martha's room. For some unknown reason, it had fallen to the ground and shattered, so he prepared to take it back for repairs. At this moment, a strange sound came from the wall. Mike curiously leaned in to listen. He discovered there was a space behind the wall. Mike picked up an axe and smashed open the wall. Sure enough, there was another room inside the wall. Not long after Mike entered, a bizarre and terrifying event occurred. Hearing Mike scream, Ian ran upstairs, and Helen followed him. When they arrived, they found Mike lying on the ground. They didn't know who had covered him with strange symbols. Mike was shaking violently, and no matter how Ian shouted, he didn't respond. Meanwhile, the Chi couple arrived as well. Martha told them that Mike's current appearance matched the portrait she had drawn before. Suddenly, Mike flew into the air and roared at Helen. He told Helen that he knew about her killing her own sister. Helen's sister was suffering in hell. As soon as he finished speaking, Mike fell to the ground, the evil spirit temporarily releasing him. Everyone drank to bolster their courage, but Helen felt overwhelmed. If they wanted to save Mike, Helen was their only hope. But in her current state, she felt incapable of doing anything, so she went outside to get some fresh air. Martha tried to comfort her, and Helen shared her childhood story with her. It turned out that Helen had a sister with special abilities. When she was younger, one time, they summoned the spirit of a little boy. The boy was unwilling to return to hell, and possessed Helen's sister. The boy devoured her soul. Helen had no choice. To eliminate the ghost, she had to kill her sister. Since she killed her sister, Helen hadn't used her powers again. Until recently, she had only used a small part of them to make a living. At this moment, Martha told Helen that she was 3 months pregnant. She didn't know about this, and she hoped Helen would help them. through this crisis. In the end, Helen made up her mind to go to the compartment behind the wall. She found many baby toys there. The others outside were worried, staring at the surveillance footage. At a critical moment, Mike was possessed by demons. Due to his handsome appearance, it grabbed Martha and took her to the bedroom. It relentlessly struck him with a crucifix. The husband tried to rescue his wife, but was unexpectedly pushed out by the demon. The scene shifted, and Helen's situation was dire as well. Her hands were nailed to the wall. The woman endured the pain. She pulled her hand out of the wall, with a nail attached. Meanwhile, the demon temporarily left the bedroom, and Chi Li ran in to embrace his wife. In fact, the demon hadn't left. It set its sights on Ian, who sat at the table with a vacant expression. On the plate were 2 teeth, and he was mumbling something incoherently. At this moment, the demon suddenly launched an attack. It pushed Marty down, causing him to crash against the wall and fall unconscious. Its next target was Annie. The demon seemed to find her attractive and pounced on Annie.
This is my home, bitch!
The demon was temporarily driven away, and to prevent it from returning to harm everyone, they bound Mike. After discussions, they decided to invite the monk to perform an exorcism on Mike. The monk quickly noticed that Helen had changed a lot. He was pleased with her transformation. After getting ready, the demon returned once more. It controlled Mike's body and floated in the air, taunting everyone present. Suddenly, Martha began to curse at Mike. The monk explained that Martha was possessed by a female ghost. These female ghosts were all killed by the demon during their lifetimes. Now, they were seeking revenge against it. Immediately, Martha was dragged to the basement by the ghost. Everyone hurriedly followed. They found her scratching at a wall incessantly. She kept saying, "Why can't they see?" Helen immediately understood and led everyone to break open the wall. They discovered another compartment inside. The area was filled with signs of decay. A projector appeared before them. Once the power was connected, they realized that the projector was an inheritance from the first owner. The projector contained recordings of what he had done in the past. It turned out that the first owner was a psychopathic killer, whose targets were pregnant women. He killed those women and extracted their babies to create spirit dolls. After the man died, these dolls became his guardians. But Helen searched the entire house and found no trace of the spirit dolls. Suddenly, she remembered the wall that Martha had been banging her head against. Everyone began to break open the wall. The spirit dolls were indeed inside. Meanwhile, the demon continued to torment Mike. Helen finally dared to face her former self. Using her powers, Helen took a shovel and teamed up with Marty. They found the grave of the previous owner. The two brought the man's skull back home. Helen held the skull in her hand and told the demon that she had discovered its secret, but the demon replied that Helen had no idea what kind of entity she was dealing with. This was its home and territory. The monk believed that the exorcism ritual had been interrupted, and only by completing it could the demon leave Mike's body. Everyone formed a circle and began reciting the incantation together. They finally managed to drive away the female ghost. On the other side, Mike appeared to be back to normal. Ian and Marty prepared to untie him, but Helen felt that something was off. As expected, it was a trap set by the demon. It captured the two men in its grasp. Seeing that things were going wrong, the monk hurriedly increased the speed of his chanting. The demon was furious and charged at the monk. Helen rushed forward and drew a summoning circle on the ground. Helen forced the demon to leave Mike's body and attach itself to her instead. The demon latched onto Helen, greedily sucking her soul. The monk continued to chant without stopping, and ultimately the demon was forced to give up. Everything finally returned to calm. The next morning, since the incident had been resolved, everyone prepared to bid farewell to the couple. At this moment, Marty noticed that the monk had vanished. Helen wanted to find him to express her gratitude. Then, she went to the living room. Helen found him there, but to Helen's surprise, the monk told her that she had killed her sister. Now she had killed everyone. Helen finally understood the truth. It turned out that, after the demon possessed her, she was controlled to kill everyone. At this moment, the demon stood behind Helen, revealing its true form. It killed Helen on the spot. Thus, the story of Don't Look at the Demon came to an end. The story follows a film crew of a supernatural show who, in search of better footage, found a house haunted by a demon. Ultimately, they met a tragic fate. The twist at the end and the overall horror atmosphere of the film were shocking. I recommend everyone to watch the original film. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscribe.